In this lesson, we're going to go over some important vocabulary that's used when we talk about points, lines, and planes. So if you could label your paper as points, lines, and planes, and then we'll get started with defining what a point is. So a point is something that does not have any size. So this is the definition. Point just does not have any size. The way we sketch, so you don't need to write this part out. How to sketch? You sketch it using a dot and a capital letter. So you will want to write down the examples. So some examples of points would be this. So I could use a dot and I could say this is point A. Another example might be point, this is point B. But one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to, if we're looking at the same one sketch, we don't want to have 2 points that have the same name. So in other words, I don't want to have another point called point A because I already have a point A in this sketch. So I don't want to have another point A because then I wouldn't know which point A I'm talking about. So instead we'll call that point C. So here's examples of points. So it's just a point with a capital letter underneath it. The next term is a line. So lines extend forever in both directions and have no thickness or width. So again, you just need to write down the vocabulary term. You do not really need to write down the how to sketch or how to name part. So I'll show you an example. Whoops. So I'll show you an example of how to name them and sketch them. So you don't need to write that part down, but you do need a definition. So some examples. The way we sketch this is we use a line that has arrows at both ends. So for example, here's a line that has arrows at both ends. And you would be given at least 2 points. So let's say this is A, B. So we could call this line AB. So the way we would name this is just AB. So this is how we would name it. We would name it AB. Another option would be to name it BA with a line on top. So this is another option of naming this line. If they gave you, let me give you another example. Let's say they gave you something like this and they just said this is line M. So we could say line M like this. So just this would be line M. So we could put the line on top like that. So this would be line M. This is a script letter. So it would be like in italics when you see it. So in MathXL, for example, if they gave you one like this, it would be an italicized letter. So that means it's just on a slant. One thing we want to be careful, we only want to use 2 letters whenever we name a line. We do not want to use more than 2 letters. So let me give you another example here. Let me just give myself some more room. So this was like example 1. Here was example 2. And actually, we would really want to name this, not that. We would really want to name this line M. And then for a third example, let's say we were given 3 points, A, B, and C on a line. So let's say we're given 3 points. We can never name a line using 3 points. So for example, we could name this as, so possible names, so I'm gonna write name. We could name this as AB, line AB. We could name it, just flip that, we could name it BA. We could also name it with point A and point C. So we could name this line AC, or we could name it CA. Or we could use the points B and C. We could name it line BC or CB. But what we can never do is we can never name it with all 3 points. So for example, in this one, we could not name this ABC. This is not a name of a line because we used 3 points. You can only use 2 points to name a line. So you cannot use 3 letters to name a line. So can't use this because it has 3 letters. So as an example, I want you to give us a try, list the ways that we could name this line. So it's got 3 points on it, PQR. So give this one a try, pause the video, and when you unpause it, I'll have the solutions for you. So there were several different ways that you could name this line that had the points P, Q, and R and the italicized letter Y. So the first way that we could name it is we could name it line PQ. So we could name it these two. We could name it QP, so just a flip of that. We could name it RP, so we could name it with this point and that point. And we could name it PR, so just a flip of the other of RP. And we could name it QR, or we could name it RQ, which is just a flip of QR. The last way that we could write this is as line Y, and I don't think I made it clear in that first example. The way we would name this one, we could also name this one as line Y. So these are the 7 ways that you could name this line. So you would want to write the words line Y. So collinear points are points that are on the same line. So for example, if I have 3 points, let's call them A, B, and C, and these were all on the same line. So these are collinear because they're all on the same line. As a non-example, let's just say that points A, B, and C all lied on different lines. So let's say here's point A, here's point B, and here's point C. So clearly those wouldn't all be on the same line. So these would not be collinear. They're not all on the same line. So are the following points collinear? So in this example, I just want to know, I gave you 2 points. I just want to know if it's collinear with the 3rd point that I gave you. Remember, collinear means they lie on the same line. So our A and C, so here's A and C, is that collinear with D? So here's D. So I hope you can see that. Well, I can connect A and C with a straight line, but I'd have to curve that line up to go to D. So A and C are on the same line, but D is not. So the answer here is no, because D is not on this line right here. Are A and F collinear with B? So here's A and F. So here's A and F. Those are on this line. Is it collinear with B? So is B on the same line? So notice if I draw my dot at B, it goes straight across the line that is AF. So here we would say yes. Are A and F collinear with D? So again, the same line. Now I'm going to look at point D. So remember, that's this point up here. Notice point D does not touch this blue line down here. So the answer here is no, because even if I was to extend this blue line forever in both directions, point D still would never touch that line. Are D and E collinear with, this should say C, sorry. Are D and E collinear with C? So I'm going to plot D and E. So here's D and E. Those are on this line. And now I'm going to plot point C because I want to know if it's collinear with those. So here's point C. Notice when I plot point C, it lies right on that purple line. So here I'm going to say yes. And then are B and E collinear with F? So again, I'm going to erase what I have here. So B and E. So here's line BE. So here's B, here's E. That's the line that's on both of those. And then here's point F. Notice B and E both are not collinear with F because B lines are on the same line with F, but all 3 of them do not lie on the same line, because if I was to extend this red line forever, this is the line with BE on it, if I was to extend that line forever, B and E would definitely be on that line, which was required by the statement B and E. but F is not on, would never be on that red line. So here the answer is no. Even though, notice, even though point F is on a line with B and it's on a line with E, it's on its own separate line with those two, but it does not share those on the same line. So the answer there is no. Next vocabulary term is array. Array is a portion of a line that has one endpoint and continues forever in one direction. Array would have an endpoint, so let's call it an endpoint. Very important, this endpoint A, there would be no other point to the left of A. And I would draw an arrow to the right. So there would be no point to the left of A here. But I would need another point on a line, let's call it B. We would call this ray AB. So the way we would name it is we would put an arrow. So we would have a line with one arrow that points, in this case, to the right. And the first point is going to be the starting point. So it's going to be A. And then the other point will be another point in the line, which is B. So this is the starting point. So this is where the ray starts. So this is example one, first example. Let me give you another example. So like as sort of example two, if I had it going the other way, I could have my arrow going to the left. Here would be my starting point. Let's call it this B and this A. The way that we would name this ray, so we would name this ray is AB. And this time my starting point was B. So I'm going to put my starting point and then my arrow goes to the left. So that's how we would name that ray. So there's two examples of array. The last vocabulary term is a segment. A segment is a portion of the line that has two endpoints. So here's an example. So here's a line. And we could call this A and this B. So we would name this, we could name this segment AB. Notice when we're naming a segment, we don't put end arrows over the AB, we just call it AB. So this is the segment AB. So this is one example. Another example that we could have of a segment would be literally just the segment. We could have two dots that meet. It's like this. So let's say we call this AB. So we could name this segment AB. You could also name it ray BA if you wanted to. This one up here, you could name it ray BA as well. So it doesn't matter, for segments, it doesn't matter if you name it, which way you name it. You could either name it AB or BA. So this does it for this first example, the first part of points, lines, and planes. There is a Math Excel assignment for you to practice. So you should be able to do that now.